That's where we are right now. In case you're wondering, what exactly is the crux of this matter? Because I can tell you guys, a lot of people are just catching up with what is playing out. So on the floor of the Senate yesterday, the lawmakers decided to, well, against the yearnings of a lot of people, the civil society groups, saying let's have real-time electronic transmission, and just electronic transmission. But the Senate said, you know what? Let's set the real time aside. Let's have electronic transmission and a fallback, which is manual transmission in that sense. So that's really the bone of contention. But do not forget that the National Assembly is not made up of just the Senate, which is what we've said time and again. There is also the House of Representatives, and they do this work together. So the House of Reps also did its own yeoman's job, gave its own version of the story, so to speak. So today on the program, we're joined by the spokesperson of the House of Representatives. We're joined by Honorable Akinrotimi Jr., who is a member representing Ekiti North 1 Federal Constituency in the House of Reps. Honorable, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Kayode and other moderators, and good morning, Nigerians. It's always a pleasure to engage.
You know, this is one of the biggest stories in the country right now, Honorable Rotimi. But I want to start from this. What is the position of the House of Representatives? What we saw on the floor of the Senate yesterday, does it align, does it mirror the clause that the House of Representatives came up with for that section, or clause 60 sub 3 on electronic transmission?
All right, thank you. So for us in the House of Representatives, we're committed to, following through with the legislative process that will, of course, lead to the eventual passage of a bill that reflects the yearnings of Nigerians. Of course, the House's version of, the bill that was passed in December, differs in a number of ways in some of the provisions from what it is that the Senate passed yesterday. So we're committed to the process. Right now we have a conference committee, which is, the prescription of the standing rules of both the House and the Senate. A conference committee made of 12 people from the House would also engage with 12 people from the Senate, sit together to be able to harmonize all of these issues into one single bill and be able to bring it back to the floor for it to be eventually passed. I must make mention that that committee is a bipartisan committee, so it has both people from the opposition and people from the ruling party spread across Nigeria to ensure that as much as possible, all voices, from different interests are also be able to be captured in the process. But overall, what you see again is that, a lot of Nigerians need to also understand that even the House's version that was passed in December, we didn't arrive at it as just the House, because from several months, before the eventual passage, the House Committee on Electoral Reforms, together with the Senate Committee on Electoral Reforms, had resolved into a joint committee, had, several retreats, several engagements, looked at the provisions together, and much more importantly, we had also had input from civil society. We'd engaged INEC, we'd engaged even the judicial sector. We'd engaged everybody to ensure that what it is that we have eventually is, reflective of what it is that Nigerians are agitating about. So this narrative about, Nigerians on the outside agitating against the Senate of the House is not quite accurate. We, even for those of us in the House, I'm sure that many members and many senators would also be on the streets agitating, if they had the opportunity as well. We all want, to have an electoral act that, would ensure free, fair, and credible elections. And I believe that that is what that the Senate and also the House is committed to. So Nigerians need to trust the process. Nigerians need to understand the process, which is that at this point in time, we're going to resolve into a conference committee to be able to harmonize the provisions and come out with a unified electoral bill.
So what is your provision? Just to be clear, what does your own version of Clause 60 sub 3 say in actual terms, so we can just lay this bare for Nigerians?
Well, yes, clearly what we have in the provision, which is why civil society and all of other stakeholders rose up to really make a lot of complaints, is simply about transmission, real-time transmission of, results, via, the IREV. But, the challenge here, which the Senate, again, you must understand the very nature of both chambers. The Green Chamber, of course, a lot younger, a lot more, progressive in some terms. The Senate, they're a little more careful. They're a little older. They're a little more careful, a little more deliberate. So it's normal. And that's the essence of a bicameral legislature. That, they thought that, look, let's be a little careful here. We're trying to pass a bill within the context of infrastructure challenges. I know that, the previous moderator had talked about, but we can't, it's not one size fits all. The fact that you're in Lagos, you're in Abuja, and you have, stable internet does not mean that, some locations that are far-flung would also be able to enjoy that same privilege. So what they've done is a fail-safe provision that, yes, you transmit the results electronically via IREV, but if there is any challenge, right, then it can be backed up by, the manual transmission of the results. So again, I wouldn't want to preempt the outcome, because you must understand that both provisions are now before a 12-man committee. For us, we have members in the House that are from the APC, from the Labour Party, from ABGA, right, and other parties involved. So for us, it's nothing out of the parliamentary process. It's normal for us to have disparate opinions about how to move such a critical bill forward. But I think Nigerians must understand that the legislature were with you, were with Nigerians on the agitation for free, fair, and credible elections.
Honorable, as much as I understand where you're coming from about the conservative nature against the vibrant nature of the conservative nature of the Senate, as against the vibrant nature of the House, given experience and age, but we must contextualize it based on facts. And the facts available to us, remember, we're all stakeholders. You, the elected, and those of us that are electorate, especially those of us who are journalists. There's no room you enter, apart from when you're planning your politics. When it comes to election, we all enter the same rooms, from the field to the collation center. Yes. The media and civil society were part of the process. That's why I'm saying that. So I want you to intervene based on fact. I know you're speaking for the House, but the committee will do their work. The BVAS was designed with the mindset that internet penetration is not everywhere. INEC is not stupid. They are aware. That's why your accreditation doesn't need internet capability. The snapping doesn't need internet capability. What requires internet capability is the upload. So it's like sending an SMS and you don't have network, you don't have data. Until you have data or credit or whatever, then it goes. The whole idea to differentiate this election from 2027 is to say there is no reason under the sun, technologically and logically, even if you live in the remotest part of Nigeria, where that device should not be used to snap, at least begin with snapping. We can discuss when it will be uploaded later. So that is why the argument against the Senate position is strong. So yes. Even sorry to cut you, even that argument is very valid. And just to make it even simpler for a lot of our listeners, if you send an email in an area where there's no internet, right, what happens is that it's hovering somewhere, and then when you get to a place where there's internet, it automatically uploads, right? So yes, there are those provisions, and I don't think Nigerians really, it's a lot of distrust of the system, and a lot of people really believing that some people want to steal elections and all of that. But it's simple. The provision, even the Senate's provision now, is simple. If at every polling unit, Nigerians are vigilant, right? To ensure that they follow through with the process. They're at the polling units, and they ensure, all the polling agents ensure that at the stage of the polling units, those results are transmitted. If there's no issues with the internet, then you don't need to worry about, the Form EC8A. You don't need to worry
very much about that. That's just like a backup also to be able to verify, because every agent, every party agent, the security officers, everybody is given a copy of the results that are uploaded. So it's really, I think that we should allow the process, you know, to work. We should remember again, this is the amendment of the Electoral Act 2022.
Honorable.
Now we are moving, the reason we're, just a minute, the reason we're at this position, right, is because of issues around judicial interpretation, right, of those provisions. And, you know, the judiciary, Nigerians, and everyone felt that, you know, we should be a little more explicit, you know, in the Electoral Act, so that it's justiciable, so that, you know, it's something that the courts can actually recognize that there's a provision in the Electoral Act as against just the guidelines of INEC. So we also don't want to, you know, create a law that would also be problematic in terms of judicial interpretation.
Honorable, so my apologies.
Yes.
If we're to be, because when you're drafting laws and extant laws, laws that guide a system.
When you are amending extant laws.
When you're amending or drafting any law, you need to think POVs in terms of mischief in mind. Now, perhaps if I was drafting that law, I may put a clause or a line that doesn't just say electronic transmission. I may actually say that the polling officer must capture I'm very deliberate with my words, capture the form EC8A as countersigned by everybody. We can take away the word real time and argue about it, because even when you're doing accreditation, what does the law say in section, I think, is this section 47 or sections also of the old law? It says that if you come for accreditation and for any reason the BVAS or whatever is not working, another one will be reintroduced. If it doesn't work, then INEC has 24 hours to organize another election in that place, based on the fact that if the outcome of that election can substantially affect the entire outcome of that, outcome of that, those elections at that particular point can affect the entirety of the bigger outcome. So all of these are being provided for. So can we safely say to Nigerians now, based on what we should be expecting, that no matter how remote your area is, do not let the polling officer leave that place without snapping that document?
Precisely the point. Precisely the point. And that is what even the Senate provisions has provided for, right? To recognize that it is mandatory, right, for the elections to be, the results at the polling unit, you know, is transmitted electronically. The fail-safe, you know, because, again, you are saying that your argument is that the entire country has coverage, has internet, but again, we're talking about, you know, the whole of Nigeria, the interlands, everywhere, you know, not just the urban centers, right, that, you know, might have issues around internet penetration. So people have argued and said, you know, everybody should make sure that at the polling unit, you know, if there is no internet, you are able to hotspot, you're able to provide whatever, you're able to make sure that, you know, the point about it is really about Nigerians remaining vigilant at the polling unit. And I believe that, you know, the laws that would, the Electoral Act that would eventually be passed, you know, would ensure that, you know, Nigerians are able to play that role of vigilance at the polling unit level to ensure that results are actually transmitted. Yeah.
Let's not forget what brought us here, Honorable, and that was several committees, public hearings, and both chambers of the National Assembly.
Civil society and
indeed,
media.
yes. Both chambers relied on recommendations from civil society, from PLAC, and other technical experts. And so, if you're saying that the Senate is perhaps conservative and the House of Reps is more, you know, liberal because it has a lot of younger representatives, in the final analysis, both chambers represent the generality of Nigerians. Senators represent senatorial districts comprising local governments. And besides even, you know, the recommendations, there was a lot of, you know, advocacy from young Nigerians on the demand for electronic transmission of results and other key recommendations in the Electoral Act Amendment 2026. So I'm asking you a direct question. Has the Senate represented the quantum of Nigerians in this decision that it has made on the Electoral Act Amendment 2026?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. First of all, I don't speak for the Senate, but I believe that the Senate has acted in the best interest of Nigerians. It's part of the legislative process. Remember that all of that review, all of that, the amendments and, feedback from civil society and all of that, that resulted in the recommendations was at committee level. It's part of the, parliamentary process for them to come back to plenary and say, this is what it is that we've worked on. And it's part of the process as well for everyone to be able to vet and say, okay, yes, we like these provisions. I have, reservations about these provisions. Let's look at this a little more closely. So that is part of the process, which it is that the Senate is, is constitutionally mandated to be able to do. So it's not an issue for the Senate as part of the parliamentary process to say, let's take a closer look. There's nothing outside that's been done outside of our standing rules, the Senate standing rules, and the parliamentary procedure. The important thing is that we're at a point right now.
Honorable Rotimi,
we're at a point right now. Yes, please.
Then it appears as if even you are not listening to Nigerians if you say that the Senate has represented Nigerians by its decision.
The Senate has represented Nigerians, by ensuring that they're following through with the parliamentary process.
But Nigerians disagree. Right? What Nigerians are demanding is electronic transmission of results. They do not want a proviso.
And that is what... No. That is what a good number of senators, are also demanding, and which has reflected in the outcomes of
so are you saying,
their debate yesterday.
Are you saying that what the Senate... what a good number of senators demand is more important than what Nigerians want, which is the fulcrum of democracy?
What the senators are demanding is also reflective of what it is that Nigerians want, which is that they want free, fair, and credible elections. And that is why you'd see, you can call it pressure or anything, but the fact is that the outcome of the process yesterday also showed that the Senate shifted grounds. Again, I don't speak for the Senate, I speak for the House. And
but you also speak for Nigerians. We're not practicing, Honorable, we're not practicing an autocracy. We're supposedly practicing a democracy. So if you're saying that what the senators want is more important than what the generality of Nigerians want, then Nigerians,
you don't need to put the words in my mouth.
Nigerians may be putting a question mark on the representation of the National Assembly that they're getting. If you're saying, because you are saying now that what the senators want is more important than what Nigerians want.
Well, those are your words.
No, those are your words. Those are your words. You said just moments ago that what senators want is also important. That's what you said. We can play back.
The Senate has acted in the best interest of Nigerians by taking feedback from the public, right? In arriving at those provisions yesterday. I don't speak for the Senate, I don't speak for senators.
But you speak for Nigerians. For the House
in a bicameral legislature.
No, you speak for Nigerians. And we can play back. If you are amending what you have said now, it's fine.
You are trying to push a narrative.
I'm not pushing any narrative. I'm quoting your words.
No, you're not. And you have a role, media, you have a role in properly educating Nigerians. The Senate has acted yesterday, right, in passing a version of the bill. I don't speak for the Senate, and I've told you that the point in which we are is that the Senate has nominated a 12-man conference committee that's going to meet with the House. I can speak about the House's position. I can speak about the fact that the National Assembly as a whole is working to ensure that what it is that we pass eventually is a reflection of the yearnings of Nigerians for free, fair, and credible elections. We have to also ensure that we adequately educate Nigerians about the process. The fact that the Senate thought that, oh yes, we had recommendations, let's take a closer look, let us debate. They didn't exclude opposition members of the Senate from plenary when they did that. It was a decision that everyone in the Senate chamber representing different constituencies, looked at the provisions and decided to arrive at what it is that they did. And they passed it on to the conference committee.
All right.
So the point we are as Nigerians now is to ensure that we also put a bit of pressure, right? It's normal. And that's why you see that yesterday, protesters, came to the House and to the National Assembly, and some of us went to engage with them. It's normal for Nigerians We should encourage the culture of dialogue. We should encourage the culture of civic engagement, you know, to ensure that, you know, leaders are listening, you know, and, you know, those that are following are also able to express their thoughts on what it is that they want us to do. So please, the media has a crucial role to play. Nigerians can be assured, right, that as it is now, the Senate and the House are dissolving into a conference committee to be able to deliberate on the different provisions. Now, everyone is looking, and I think the media as well has done a lot in just some sort of reductionist narrative about just electronic transmission. What of the other provisions that, you know, differ? What of the issue of, you know, accreditation at the polling units, in which, you know, the House had recommended that, you know, even if you don't have the PVC, other forms of national ID can be used. Or what of the issue of the number of days that the Senate has also recommended should be reduced for from 360 to 180. There's so many provisions, but when the media, right, fixates on a particular issue and does not broaden the conversation, you're not working in the best interest of Nigerians.
Well, Honorable, this is not about the media.
The issue of electronic transmission of voters is very, very important. It's as important to you as it is to us.
All right, Honorable, let me come in quickly because of time. You made those points interesting, and I must say that consistently on this show and across board, we have highlighted those issues around even the punitive measures for those who buy voter cards. We have highlighted it. The Senate decided to reduce it rather than increase the years. We have also raised issues. Pardon me, Honorable. Right, pardon me, Honorable. So we've spoken about these things extensively and will continue to. The point is to thrash this electronic transmission bit out, so Nigerians understand, and that's why we have you on the show, to explain your side. Let us understand the reasoning. That's the essence of democracy. But I want to put this in practice, because it's still a proposal from the Senate. You have your own recommendation. They have their own recommendation. It is not law just yet until the harmonization, eventual vote, and then we'll see if the president signs it into law this year, as has been said. But let's put it into practice with the current proposal by the Senate. So how will this work? Once voting is conducted, walk us through the process. So once they use the beavers to snap the result and send it, upload it, at what point do they then decide that, oh, let us switch to manual? Help us properly contextualize this so Nigerians understand the flow.
I can't speak and preempt, you know, a legislative process. Where we are right now is that the Senate, I believe the Senate spokesperson was with you yesterday to shed more light on the issues. I can't speak on the provisions of the Senate. What I know right now is that the provisions of the Senate and the provisions of the House are before a joint Senate-House conference committee to be able to harmonize the process. When we arrive at you know, a unified version of the Electoral Act which is transmitted to the president, I'll be happy to engage with you on what those provisions are. But at this time, I don't think I need to preempt, you know, the eventual outcomes of that process. So I think that, you know, our role right now, and, you know, for me, you know, as a legislator, I also have the duty to talk to my colleagues, in the conference committee and say, these are my own thoughts. These are the thoughts of a lot of people that I believe that I represent. These are the thoughts of civil society that, you know, I also came out of, you know, to be able to ensure that we keep the pressure on, to be able to have an eventual outcome that's reflective of what it is that Nigerians want. Right. You don't need to, you know, have guests on your show and put words into their mouth about Nigeria,
Honorable,
you know, saying that
so let's come in. Let me come in here, Honorable, so that we're clear. We need to educate Nigerians, all of us. So first and foremost, I've seen people argue about transmission or real time, and they're thinking it's votes. For the records, it is results. Results would mean that...
It's results.
Oh, yes, all processes are being concluded, everybody has countersigned, and results. Because I hear some people saying, we don't vote electronically, how do we transmit? So it's result. But what we're trying to say here is that Nigerians don't trust the political class. I just want to lay it bare. You must understand. I'm sure you know that already. I don't need to tell you that. Nigerians don't trust.
It's historical, and that's what we'll keep on working on
and
to regain the trust of Nigerians.
Both Nigerians and the politicians, based on what played out in 2023, are both traumatized, especially around the presidential election and all of that. So you can see why, for instance, in a football match...
Is that your thoughts? Is that your thoughts about... Are you giving your own thoughts about
an outcome that there was a lot of...
concluded?
Mr. Rotimi, just calm down. There was an upset...
Yes, because the generality of Nigerians voted on an election. You're not going to make this partisan. You're not going to make this about the 2023 election outcomes.
Mr. Rotimi, if you allow me land, maybe you can understand.
I beg your pardon.
No.
Just a minute.
Don't put words in my mouth.
This is not
Hold on.
This is not an opposition position.
Mr. Rotimi,
the ruling party, APC legislators are as much invested, right, in the outcomes of an electoral act that serves free, fair, and credible elections.
Honorable,
so don't say Nigerians are traumatized about the outcomes of the 2023 elections.
If only you listen, you will hear my deductions. Politicians were shocked, especially the legislator. We saw an upset in that election. That is the premise of the elected being traumatized. The issue around, which has been resolved by the Supreme Court, can you just hold on, Honorable? Can you just calm down? Let me conclude my thought, please. I allowed you to talk. The part of the electorate here is to the effect of, we were in the media, we were here to collate results, and we didn't see those results till the next day. That is the premise of the trauma. Everybody is now trying to protect their own end to say, how do we make this system better for both the elected and the electorate? I hope you are clear on my position now. So,
we're committed to that process as well. Yeah.
So I hope, that's why I said you should have waited for me to land so you understand where I'm coming from. So the point now is that Nigerians are pushing that the conference committee adopts the position of the House. Is that a fair push from a lot of the Nigerians? Of course, there are people that want the House, the position of the Senate.
Well, it's fair. If I, you know, again, I speak for the House. I wouldn't want to preempt the outcomes by sharing my own personal opinion. But you must understand that the House is made up of 360 members. You know, very many are, you know, come from an activist background, come from a background where, you know, we want to see, you know, free, fair, and credible elections. So, you know, my view, it's not even just my view. My view, the view of majority of you know, people in the House is also that we're talking to our colleagues to ensure that whatever outcomes, you know, serves the best interest of Nigerians. So we should allow and trust the process. We should of course, keep the pressure on. We know what is happening even internally, you know, engaging our colleagues, sharing our thoughts and our ideas, you know, on those provisions, which is the parliamentary process. So it's a hot topical issue. Yesterday I was with protesters engaging, trying to educate and trying to share, you know, to educate Nigerians on the process, where we are exactly, you know, with the process, because we believe that Nigerians have a voice and that voice should be used, and we believe that we should listen, you know, to Nigerians, and that should be reflected, you know, in the legislative process. So that's where we are, and we're committed to the process, to following it through. You know, the Senate President has said yesterday that, you know, is going to ensure that the process is expedited so that we are able to come out with a unified version that's passed and transmitted to the President very quickly within a week or two. That is what, you know, we want. That is what we're agitating for. And most importantly, to look through all of the provisions, not only on electronic voting, but on other provisions, you know, to ensure that. So it's not about the Senate and the House. There are arguments, you know, 360 you know, days for announcement of the electoral calendar of notice, as against 180. There's a lot of merits and demerits.
Absolutely.
Of electronic transmission like the House has passed. There are a lot of merits, you know, compared as well to what it is that the Senate has proposed. We're going to look at it. Please, let us trust Nigerians. Let us be careful about shaping narratives about this is an opposition agenda. The House doesn't want, you know, to pass this. The Senate doesn't want to pass this. The National Assembly is committed to passing an electoral act that serves the best interests of Nigerians and will result in free, fair, and credible elections.
I would like you to make just one commitment as we wind down. Once this is sorted and harmonized, you'll be one of the very first people who will have to then break these issues down and really operationalize them. Is that something you're sure
absolutely, absolutely.
All right.
Continuous engagement is what it is that we're going to do. Not only myself, you know, the chairman of the House Committee on Electoral Matters has been on your show several times, on your station several times. We'll continue to engage.
Right.
Remember, we'll continue to work to earn the trust of Nigerians.
And that's the idea entirely. We must thank you, Honorable Akin Rotimi, spokesperson of the Nigerian House of Representatives and member representing Ekiti North 1 Federal Constituency. It's quite interesting that both the spokespersons of the House and the Senate are from Ekiti. We need to understand the secret. But, Honorable, we wish you the very best.
Thank you very much, and good morning again, Nigerians.
There you go. If you have more questions, more concerns, send them in. That is the essence of democracy. But we'll take a moment now. And when we return, there is more for you on the Electoral Act, those sections that give you concerns, plus how the dailies are reporting the big stories. So stay with us. We'll be right back.